All year, Texans fans have been saying that they want their head coach, Bill O'Brien, fired. And for the first time, I've pushed back on this for a long time, but for the first time, I'm finally listening to you people out there. I'm listening to you guys. I want to be careful here because I don't think Bill O'Brien is an awful head coach. Bill O'Brien has won a lot of games. He's been to the playoffs multiple times. And winning games doesn't happen by accident in the NFL. For example, the Cleveland Browns, people always say that the Houston Texans have a ton of talent on their roster, and fair enough. But if talent won games alone in the NFL, the Cleveland Browns would have won a ton of games last year. The Cleveland Browns had a ton of talent on their roster, and they didn't win because they had the wrong head coach, Freddie Kitchens. So if you hate Bill O'Brien, fair enough. But he's got some competence as a head coach, because even though he might not be achieving, he might be underachieving a little bit, he still wins games. He still won the division. He still took his team to the playoffs. So Bill O'Brien is not an awful coach. However, I got to acknowledge this. I believe that Bill O'Brien has reached his ceiling as an NFL head coach. It's unfortunate. I was talking to a coach yesterday, and this is what really got me when he said this. He said, are we going to look back at Deshaun Watson's career and think, could more have been done to help Deshaun Watson? Man, that hit me like a punch in the gut. The Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson is one of the best young quarterbacks in the entire NFL. He's phenomenal. I love him. He's really good at his job. I mean, he's everything you want in a quarterback. There was even a moment in the Texans-Chiefs playoff game where, the pressure's on, and the Texans were down 10 points, and he's getting pushed around, and I actually saw Deshaun Watson was smiling gigantically ear to ear. He loves competition. He loves fighting. He loves battling. He's like a dream quarterback. I would love to have Deshaun Watson be my franchise quarterback. And you know what I hate? Like, one of the things I hate more than anything in the entire world, I absolutely hate missed opportunities. And it feels to me like if, in fact, the Houston Texans don't win a Super Bowl with Deshaun Watson, that's a missed opportunity because he's a special quarterback who can do special things. And it feels like Bill O'Brien, the head coach of the Houston Texans, might not be that guy who can win a Super Bowl in Houston. It feels like the Texans have reached a ceiling. They've gone as far as they can possibly go with Bill O'Brien. Why did the Houston Texans lose to the Kansas City Chiefs? They were outmatched the entire game. I know they had a 24-0 lead. I did a whole video and a topic about how that lead was really false. But the Texans coaching staff made boneheaded decisions down the stretch, especially on special teams. A 4th and 1 where they didn't look prepared. And there was a moment where they ran a fake field goal on their own 31-yard line. What are you doing? What are you doing? I watched that live and I was like, what is happening? The Houston Texans, what the heck are you? This is a horrible, horrible decision. And the Texans looked ill-prepared. There was a 4th and 1 where they left the offense on the field at first. They were clearly about to go for it. And then there was some confusion, and the Texans ended up calling a timeout. And after the game, Bill O'Brien, the Texans head coach, admitted publicly, he said, I didn't have a play I liked in that situation. Dude, that's your job. No offense, I don't really care. You're the head coach. Your job is to be prepared to have a play you like ready on a 4th and 1 situation in their territory to run on 4th and 1. He didn't have one ready. He wasn't prepared, and that's like a death penalty for a head coach. You can't ever admit that. It might be true, but please don't ever say that publicly to the media that you aren't prepared to do your job in a moment you were needed. I don't know, man. The bad decisions by Bill O'Brien just keep adding up more and more, and I really am starting to believe that I've defended Bill O'Brien. I mean, Bill O'Brien's won games. He's not miserable, but he, I believe, is what's holding back the Houston Texans from getting farther down the road in the playoffs. He's not an awful coach. He's won games. He's in the playoffs. He won their division, but he frequently hurts his own team. Honestly, I think it might be good for the Houston Texans if they fired Bill O'Brien. And I think getting fired might be good for Bill O'Brien. It might force him to regroup. I mean, he's got to do some self-analysis and self-analyze, look inward, and improve in the long run as a coach because he makes far too many little errors in in-game decision making. It's awful. It's like he's not prepared. There's all these little holes in Bill O'Brien's, there's coaching moments from Bill O'Brien where you go, the heck, man? How do you have this job? How is this really what's happening from a professional NFL head coach? I don't understand it, man. It's also, you got to also acknowledge this. Currently, the Houston Texans do not have a general manager. A general manager is the guy who picks the players for your franchise. Bill O'Brien assumes the role of general manager, but there isn't one currently in Houston. That's another problem. So it appears that not only is Bill O'Brien the problem with coaching holding back the Houston Texans, it seems like he might not even be helping the team by being a bad general manager. So I think the Texans are going to keep him. It's after the season is over. They didn't fire Bill O'Brien when they had the opportunity to right after the year ended. And he got to the playoffs. And it's rare for a coach to get fired after the playoffs, after a playoff run, where they even won a playoff game. But sadly, I'm sold. I'm finally listening to Texans fans. I think it's time to move on from Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien wins, and that's great. But winning is not everything. I think he's reached a ceiling and reached a moment where I don't think Bill O'Brien is a good enough coach to lead the Texans to a Super Bowl. And once you figure that out, you got to cut bait. When you're dating a girl and you want to get married and you realize this girl is not the girl I'm going to marry, you got to end it because there's no future there. You've gone as far as you can go, and now you see the end and you realize we're not where we need to be. That's where the Houston Texans are. They're with Bill O'Brien, and it's come to at least my attention that Bill O'Brien's not the guy to lead them to a Super Bowl. And so at that point, what are you doing? Why are you wasting more time and more energy with a coach that isn't good enough to take you to the place you want to get to? I think Bill O'Brien is holding back the Houston Texans. He's reached his ceiling. And if the Texans ever want to win a Super Bowl with their incredible quarterback, Deshaun Watson, they're going to have to move on, sadly, from Bill O'Brien. A competent coach who can win games, but he's not going to be able to take the Texans to a Super Bowl anytime soon.